could it be? For me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to my continued coverage of the 2019 NFL Scouting Combine here on the Louie T Network. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Another eventful day at the Combine, and we got a guest appearance from Michael Mayock, which made me smile. And I thought this was one of the days that I would be extremely bored. I told you I'm not an offensive line guy, not a defensive line guy, even though the defensive line and the edge rushers arguably are the best two positions in all of this draft. I was really looking forward to the edge rushers. I really could care less, I thought at least, about the defensive line, but man, were they impressive. I don't think we'll find a better group of athletes than we saw at the linebacker position and edge rushers. I mean, I was blown away, especially by the linebackers. I think that's, to me, the biggest takeaway from day number 3 is that the league has adjusted. College football has adjusted. Athletes have adjusted. 10 years ago, I mean, guys 6'5", 250 pounds weren't running on average 6'5" 40s. I mean, it was nothing. These guys were running 4.6s and 4.5s, and there was a few 4.4s in there like it was nothing. I mean, this is the new norm now. The NFL breeds athletes. These athletes are of a different breed now. It's amazing. It's mind-boggling how far we've come when you look at these athletes. And just a mere 7 years ago, you know, what the norm was for a 6'4", 245, 6'4", 240, 6'3", 237-pound linebacker. Now you look at these guys, and they're running 4.55s, 4.5 flats, 4.6s, and it's like nothing. I mean, the linebackers are truly fun to watch because of how athletically gifted they are, and they have to be with the new age NFL with these running backs that are getting faster, that have a more diverse skill set, that can catch it out of the backfield, that are very athletic and have tremendous agility. You got to be able to keep pace with these guys. These tight ends that are running. We saw the tight end group yesterday and how athletically gifted they are, and we see these tight ends every year come into the league, and the guys that are blossoming right before our eyes. You have to be more athletically gifted to keep up with these guys, and you're seeing it with these linebackers. I thought that was the biggest takeaway from day number 3. Some other things to take away. A lot of guys that I really wanted to see weren't able to perform today or chose not to perform, and we'll get to all of those things, but it was another quality day of combine coverage, day number 3, that featured the defensive line, edge rushers, and the linebackers. And I think, to me, the best position in all of this draft are, I know a lot of people are going goo gaga over the defensive line. Give me the edge rushers. I get excited about edge rushers because, one, my team needs one desperately, and the more that there are in the draft, the more likely it is my team will be able to get their hands on one. But they're so good. They're so athletic. This makes me excited because it really shows you that in this league where the passers are the stars, if you can get to the quarterback, you've got a shot. These guys are going to give you a shot, and this is the new wave of the NFL. And you see these guys coming in here, and they've got a shot to really do damage with the kind of athleticism we saw on display today. So let's get to group number 7 that started off day number 3, the defensive line. Terry Beckner Jr. out of Mizzou, 6'4", 296 pounds. He was solid. Again, one of those guys that I knew about going in. Haven't watched enough tape to really give you a full assessment of his game. Thought he was solid on the day. Didn't do anything to wow anyone. But again, I think he's one of those guys. He was a highly sought after recruit out of high school. I think he's one of those guys that has untapped potential moving to the next level. And if you can get it out of him, you could get yourself a gem in this draft. Isaiah Buggs out of Alabama, 6'3", 306 pounds. I've never been an Isaiah Buggs guy. To me, he strikes me as one of those guys that made plays on a defense that was just chock full of NFL players. And because he was around so many athletically gifted guys, he benefited from it. I mean, don't get me wrong, not a bad player. In fact, he's a quality NFL or a quality football player. I just don't know if he's a difference maker at the next level. He was solid again. Nothing earth-shattering on the day from him. Draymond Jones out of Ohio State, 6'3", 281 pounds. Thought he would actually test better than he did today. Was actually, I'm not disappointed, but actually surprised he didn't perform a little bit better and test as well as I thought he was going to throughout this process, but nonetheless, a solid day for him. Dexter Lawrence, 6'4", 342 pounds, 36 reps of 2 1/4, 5.05, 40, 1.76, 10-second split. Ridiculous times for a guy that big, and that was all he did. First 40 run, he ends up straining his quad. It's a minor strain. He'll be ready for the Clemson Pro Day, which is great news. But to see a guy that big run that fast, that might have been as impressive a feat as we saw all day, and we saw some very impressive feats. As a matter of fact, there was another guy in this group that blew everybody away, that we expected to blow us away, and he still did it anyway. That's when you know that you're truly an exceptional talent. When we expect big things from you, not only do you deliver, but you exceed our expectations, and that's what the guy in this group did a little bit later on. But nonetheless, Dexter Lawrence, for me, without doing anything else other than showing up, pumping out 36 reps and running the 40 once, to me, he's a huge winner off of just the strength of his bench press and that 140. To me, he won, even though he didn't do anything else on the field. No Ed Oliver in the combine today, and I got him down as one of my biggest losers, and I know some of you are going to disagree with that, and I'm not beating up Ed Oliver. This is the thing with Ed Oliver. Here's a guy that I feel like is really being undersold in this draft. Remember, and I talked about this on my podcast, and if you haven't listened to my podcast, what are you waiting on? Louie T Network podcast, available on Stitcher, Google Music Play, iTunes, and TuneIn. Of course, the website, louietnetwork.net as well. Check out the Louie T Network podcast, chock full of good content. Anyhow, I talked about how Ed Oliver has been a forgotten man in this process. And when you go back to last year, who are we talking about as the #1 pick in the draft? Everybody needs to try to get ready for Ed Oliver and get in position to draft Ed Oliver, #1 overall. Who the hell is talking about Ed Oliver these days? That's what I'm talking about. This combine was a chance for him to come back into the consciousness of everyone. Now, look, again, us as fans, we don't matter in the grand scheme of things. The evaluators know how talented this guy can be. But from a consciousness standpoint, we haven't heard from Ed Oliver. He didn't have a great year. He was battling injuries. This was a chance for him to show everybody and re-jump and remind everyone about just how talented and gifted he is. He was supposed to come in and tear the combine up, and because he had to put on weight, and he gave us this bullshit excuse about his hamstring. Oh, my hamstring's a little tight or whatever. That's what you do if you don't want to work out. All you got to do is throw out the obligatory, hey, I got a tight hammy. What are we going to say? You don't have a tight hamstring? I mean, if you tell us your hamstring is tight, your hamstring is tight, you know? But I don't think anything was wrong with him. I think it was a matter of he wanted to come in at a heavier weight, show everybody, hey, look at me. I put on 15 pounds. I'm 287 pounds now, so you can stop talking about my weight. The guy played at 270 and some change throughout his career at Houston. There's no doubt in my mind that he wants to shed off all the extra weight that he put on so that he can be more explosive, run faster, time better, and that's why he didn't want to work out at the combine. So essentially, he's trying to dupe people. They're going to weigh him again at his pro day. I don't know what he thinks he's doing and how he's going to get over. They're going to weigh him again. They still want to get these measurables. They know what you're up to. So why not just go out and perform? Whatever. I'm not here to tell that man that he didn't have a sore hamstring. Nonetheless, I thought it was an opportunity for him to come out and show in a group that I thought tested well, but no one was great except for one guy or two guys. If you take into consideration 6'4", 342-pound Dexter Lawrence, I thought this was an opportunity for him to go in there and blow this thing up. And he decided to wait till his pro day. It is what it is. Nonetheless, that's why I'm disappointed in Ed Oliver. But 36-inch vert, 10 broad, you telling me you got a sore hammy and you're doing all of that? Come on, man. I'm not buying it. But in any event, the guy's highly athletic and gifted, all right? So I just thought this was a chance for him to remind everybody of why people were talking about him as a #1 overall pick just a year ago. So in any event, Colin Sanders, we all know the story. The guy that can do the backflips. We heard about his eventful Senior Bowl, having a child and not being there, not being present for the actual birth, going home and then missing his flight, trying to get back to the Senior Bowl for the game, and then getting a sack in the game. He was outstanding that entire week. And I thought he checked off another box at 6 feet, 324 pounds, running almost a 540 flat, 5'0", 140 with a 173 split. I mean, that's extraordinary, which kind of gives you more framework for Dexter Lawrence's 6'4", 342-pound, 5'0", 176 split. Again, just phenomenal athleticism on display from some of these guys, including Jerry Tillery, who I thought had a phenomenal day out of Notre Dame, 6'6", 295 pounds, 4'9", 440, a 169 split. I thought Jerry Tillery looked outstanding, and I'm a huge Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan. There's some inconsistencies with him in his game, but when he's locked in, he is a difference maker. Go watch the Stanford game. If you're looking for a guy making a true difference, he destroyed Stanford in that football game to the tune of 4 sacks. And there was a possession there where he just literally took over the game. Christian Wilkins, we all know what this guy is capable of, 6'3", 315. He just went out and ran a 5'0", 540 with a 176 split. So again, more athleticism being shown by these big guys up front. But the guy that stole the show along the defensive line was the guy we expected, and this is what I talked about at the top when I said it's one thing for a guy to have expectations. It's another thing for a guy to not only meet those expectations but exceed them, and that's what we got out of Quinton Williams, the Alabama product. Now, when you talk about Alabama defensive linemen and guys that deserve to be top 15 picks, I love Jonathan Allen. I love Daron Payne. They're both Washington Redskins. I love them as much as the next man. You can go all the way back to the Seattle Seahawks and the Detroit Lions taking a couple of Alabama boys in the second round about 3 years ago. None of those guys compare to Quinton Williams. What he is capable of doing, and he's not even scratching the surface yet. And I love Daron Payne, and I know Redskins fans always get on me because of me being against the pick. But this is what I'm talking about when I say if you're going to spend a top 15 pick on an interior defensive lineman, this is what he's supposed to look like. Quinton Williams at 6'3", 303 pounds, ran a 4'8", 440 with a 167 split. Are you kidding me? All right. The guy looked so fluid out on the field. And the thing about Quinton Williams is he affects the game in all aspects. You have to be a pass rusher. He can be a pass rusher. He can beat double teams. He beats single block. You can't single block this guy and expect to have not have him destroy you. So Quinton Williams is what you're looking for when you're going to spend a top 5, top 10, top 15 pick on an interior defensive lineman. He looks like a Fletcher Cox. He looks like an Aaron Donald type of guy, even though, you know, Aaron Donald's in a league of his own. He looks like one of those guys when we start talking about dominant forces, when Geno Atkins had it going, Fletcher Cox right now, and what he's doing. He looks like one of those types of guys in Ndamukong Suh that can take over a game from the defensive tackle position. That's what I was talking about, and I said Daron Payne was not that. I still don't think Daron Payne is that, but he may grow into that. But that's what I was looking for. And Quinton Williams showed exactly why people are talking about him as the potential #1 overall pick in this draft. A guy that I had no idea who he was not on my radar. Now I got to go back and see what the hell is up with him, is Kevin Givens out of Penn State. I guess these Penn State guys, I should know better because they test well. Whatever they're doing with their strength and conditioning at Penn State, it is off the charts. And people need to be asking them what they're doing because all of their guys come and test well. And Kevin Givens did that as well. 285, running a 4.87 with a 1.59 split. Are you serious? So that forces you to go back and see what the deal is with this guy, if there's anything actually there, or is he just an athletic freak? Tristan Hill was one of the biggest winners of the day out of Central Florida. Here's a guy, 6'3", 308 pounds, ran a 5'0", 440, 35-inch vert. 9'7" broad. He was just tremendous athletically, fluid mover, looks the part of a guy that could be a true disruptor at the next level if everything comes together. I'm anxious to see what this guy is all about because the athleticism that he displayed throughout day number 3 was just outstanding. Okay, so if you're talking from a perspective of who blew me away the most, it would be Quinton Williams, then it would be Tristan Hill, and then Jerry Tillery and Dexter Lawrence in that order. So definitely got to see what's going on with Tristan Hill. Here's a guy that I thought was just outstanding on the day. So Jeffrey Simmons, I must mention, no combine for him. Even if he was healthy, remember, he tore his ACL out in Florida, just getting ready for his pro day because he could not perform at the combine because of a transgression he had back in the day. And, you know, the new policy with the combine is that if you have any kind of felony on your record or a serious misdemeanor, but generally felonies, you can't participate at the combine. He fell into that bracket, and it was a shame because, to me, he's one of the best defensive linemen in this draft. And then he tears his ACL preparing for his pro day. And so no Jeffrey Simmons. I don't think he's going to be a first-round pick now. It wouldn't shock me if he still went late first out of Mississippi State. But this is a guy with all the tools necessary to be a true difference maker in this league up front along that defensive line. Hell, Mississippi State chock full of really good football players. You're going to see another one tomorrow in Jonathan Abrams out of Mississippi State at the safety position. So they've got a lot of football players coming out of Mississippi State, and Jeffrey Simmons, one of them you did not see today that should have been at the combine but was not invited in any way, tore his ACL, so he wouldn't have been able to participate anyhow. In any event, we move on to group number 8, the edge rushers. These guys really get my juices flowing here because love to see edge rushers going out and balling because that's what this league needs, an infusion of top flight edge rushers. And I think we haven't seen a draft class like this in quite some time, if ever, in terms of edge rushers with so many. Now, are all of these guys going to pan out? There's no telling, you know, how many of these guys are actually going to be true playmakers at the NFL level, but they have the athletic skill set to do so, that's for sure. There are some big-time winners in this group. Let's run through the list, though. Zach Allen should have been with the defensive lineman. I love the fact that they split up the D linemen and the edge rushers because in years past, it was just weird. You would have a guy run a 4.57 and then you'd have a guy run a 5.12, and you're like, why are these guys in the same group? It's not an apples-to-apples comparison. Zach Allen, I thought, out of BC was misplaced. He should have been with the defensive lineman. He's 6'4", 281. Yes, he can get after the quarterback, but I think he's still more in line with the defensive lineman. But in any event, he was with the edge rushers. He ran a 4.95. Again, not fair to compare him to the rest of the guys that we're going to talk about because he's a much bigger guy, plays a different – he's more of a 5-tech, if you ask me, than a 4-3 base defensive end, which I think he can play at the next level, but I think he's more of a big physical presence as a 5-tech. You may even be able to slide him inside in obvious passing situations as a 3-tech. In any event, thought he was solid. Thought he moved well. They actually asked him to be in the conversion drills. That's how well he moved, but in any event, I thought he should have been with the defensive line. Ben Bangu out of TCU, 6'3", 250, ran a 4.6, 240, a 1.56 split with an 11.2 broad. The guy had a tremendous day testing. He is definitely comfortable being out in space, and so you can tell the guys that have been asked to do this in the past, he definitely looked fluid. I've watched enough TCU to be able to tell you that this guy can not only get after the quarterback, but can also drop into coverage as well. Nick Bosa, the cream of the crop of this group, 6'4", 266, 4.79 40. We knew he wasn't going to blow us away with his 40. A 1.6 split, though, is absolutely phenomenal, which tells you all you need to know, especially with these guys. To hell with the 40, really. The 40 is great. It shows long distance speed, but what we care about is the get off with these edge rushers. So that 10-second split is really what you're concerned with because that's what's going to win at the next level. How quickly can you get off the ball and beat that tackle around the edge and get to the quarterback? And that 1.6 flat in terms of that 10-second split is ridiculous for Nick Bosa. And again, just like I said with his brother some 3-4 years ago, the best hands I've seen of a college football pass rusher coming into the NFL, period. It's not up for debate. Joey Bosa's hands, still, his hands are better than Nick's, but Nick is not that far behind. Best hands I've ever seen of any pass rusher coming to the next level, and Bosa, Nick Bosa, his hands are right there, and so you already know what you're getting in terms of a guy and using his hands. He's definitely a black belt in hand usage coming into the next level. Brian Burns, to me, the star of the show of this group when you're talking about the performance of the day. Yes, Montez Sweat lit everybody on fire with his 40. We'll get to him a little bit later on. But for me, the guy that I walked away the most impressed with was Brian Burns. And not because he tested well. I expected Brian Burns to test well. I expected him to run well. I expected him to look fluid in space. But you know what impressed me the most is this guy hit us with a Vic Beasley. This guy put on a legit 15 pounds. You watch Brian Burns at FSU, he was playing at about 235, straight up. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Brian Burns legitimately was playing at 230, 235, all right? This man showed up at the combine at 249, damn near 250, and still blazed a 4.53 with a 1.57 split. And if you watched him in the conversion drills, he looked like he was a defensive back. I mean, he looked light on his feet, caught everything. The man looks like a supremely gifted athlete, one that I would love to get my hands on. Straight up and down. I left the combine day 3 saying, God damn it, Brian Burns, love to put him in a Washington Redskins uniform. End of discussion. John Comiskey out of Charleston. Again, never heard of this guy. Never heard of him. However, I left this saying, I'm going to watch. I'm going to watch. When you're 6'5", 286, and you run a 4.66 with a 1.26 split, or excuse me, a 1.62 split. hey, bro, I got some work to do. He was moving out there, and it wasn't just a 40. He looked smooth in every single drill he participated in. And I listened to Daniel Jeremiah say that, look, man, this guy's going to test well because he looked great on tape. I can't wait to watch. So that was one of those guys you walk away saying, I got some work to do. And John Comiskey looks like one of those guys I've got work to do because he was exceptional on the day. Rashawn Gary is by far and away one of the better defensive linemen in this draft. 6'4", 277 out of Michigan. He proved why he considers himself the best defensive lineman in this draft and why he's going to probably be a top 5, top 10 pick for sure. 4.58 at 277. Give me a break, guys. Like, this is what I'm talking about. This is why this group is going to be such a different group than what we're used to. 6'4", 277, 4.58 with a 1.62 split. Come on, guys. Seriously, what are we doing here, folks? Like, these guys aren't messing around. And so he looked so good in all of the drills. His movement skills, you saw him drop at Michigan. They played him over the slot at times. You saw all of that on display. Rashawn Gary was outstanding throughout this day. Clelin Ferrell did not run the 40, and I wasn't that impressed with him. His movement skills did not wow me. He looked long and lumbery, and at 6'4", 264, look, this is not what he does. He's a pass rusher. I don't want to see him in the conversion drills. I don't want to see this guy dropping. He's a pass rusher. And I was anxious to see the 10-second split because that's what's going to win for him. His length and his 10-second split, it's what's going to win. He didn't run the 40. I'm a little questionable as to why he didn't. I'm questioning, like, scratching my head. You hiding something from me? What's going on there? But in any event, he did perform in all the on-the-field drills, just did not run the 40. Carl Granderson was a guy that I was really disappointed in. I didn't put him on my biggest losers list because I had expectations for him. He didn't fall so far below that I would put him on the biggest loser list, but at 6'5", 254, he's a guy that's still growing into his body. This is a guy that showed up at Wyoming at around 220 some odd pounds. All right, and he's built his body into that of a defender, a edge rusher, and at 254, it's a little bit more weight than he's been carrying, and you can tell that 4.8 40 wasn't what I was looking for from him. I thought he would be a lot more athletic. He looked a little bit more fluid in the conversion drills and the on-field drills than he did the 40, but I just thought he was going to be faster. I thought he was going to move faster, but I thought he looked fluid. He didn't move as fast as I thought he was going to move, but I thought he looked fluid in his movements throughout the course of the day. Joe Jackson, another guy that I think is an underrated potential pass rusher in this draft, another long guy similar to Clelin Ferrell, another 4.3 base end. He didn't run the 40. At 6'4", 275, he wasn't going to wow us with his athleticism, but I was anxious to see what he would run and what that 10-second split would be, and he decided not to run. So, again, much like with Clelin Ferrell, I want to see what that 10-second split was. We're not going to, and so another head scratcher. You hiding something from me? What's going on? In any event, Charles Omenihu out of Texas, 6'5", 280, 4'9", 340. I thought he would be a little bit faster than that, but he's a big guy. Big physical guy. When you look at him, you can tell he's a big physical guy. And so he didn't blow me away with his performance at the combine. Thought he would test a little bit better, but he wasn't too far off of what I was expecting from him. Ja'Kai Polite was dealing with an injury, but he tried to gut it out, and I appreciate that. If you're not right, though, don't go. You know what I mean? If you've legitimately got a hamstring injury, don't go. And he tried to go. He ran the 40, ran a 4.84. That's not who he is. He's not a 4.84 guy, and he pulled out after the first 40 at 6'3", 258, and so he put on a little bit of weight himself, but nonetheless, he'll be performing at his Florida Pro Day. I expect big things from him there. This wasn't a true representation of what he is as an athlete, and you could tell he was definitely nursing some type of injury, and he did pull up lame after his first 40. Montez Sweat was the standout performer of the 40. Really on the day. Yes, some guys in Group 9 at the linebacker position wowed us, but they're not 6'6", 260, okay? They're not 6'6", 260, running a 4.41 with a 1.55 10-second split. Like, that's ridiculous. That is utterly ridiculous. We knew how athletically gifted this guy was. I had no idea it was that much athleticism oozing and dripping out of this guy's body. That's ridiculous. And when I looked at him, it was funny Rich Eisen said it, because I turned to my girl and I said, he looks like J-Pep to me. He looks like a clone of J-Pep. Obviously, J-Pep's probably a good 15 to 20 pounds heavier than this guy and was still just as athletic. But I say he looks like J-Pep. At 6'6", 260, he looks the part of Julius Peppers. He'd love to have half the career of a J-Pep. But there are some things in his game that I think needs to be cleaned up, or at best, he just needs to get just a tad bit better at. But if you're talking from a pure pass rushing standpoint, he's as good as you're going to find in this draft, and he's another guy that can come in and change the game. To me, he's a pure 4-3 base end. He's not a guy you want to stand up and use in a 3-4 defense, but because he's a little tight. So I think you want him with his hand in the dirt. But nonetheless, that performance at the combine, for me, solidifies Montez Sweat as a top 15 pick. If this guy falls out of the top 15, someone's getting truly, truly remarkable value in this draft. And it may happen with all the quarterbacks. Some of these other guys testing well. Other guys may be pushed up the board. You may see a guy that has no business dropping out of the top 15 doing exactly that. And Montez Sweat may be that guy. Who's to say? But I tell you what, you're going to get yourself a hell of a football player if he was to drop out of the top 15. That is for certain. A guy that really impressed me, I didn't expect him to test as well as he did. Chase Winovich out of Michigan, 6'3", 256, 4.59 40, 1.57 10-second split. This is a guy that is a relentless pass rusher. I've watched more than my fair share of Big Ten football, especially Michigan and Ohio State. And to watch Chase Winovich, who I just thought was a hustle guy, a maximum effort guy, not going to give up, try hard guy, to watch him actually show some athleticism. That was the thing everybody questioned coming into the combine. Boy, did he check off some boxes and help himself immensely with his performance at the combine. I thought it was a big day for him. He was another big winner in day number 3. O'Shane Ximines out of ODU. You know I'm rooting for him as a fellow Monarch. I was hoping that he would test well. I thought he was solid. All right, I was hoping he'd test a little bit better, but these are not bad numbers, okay? 6'3", 253, 4.79 40, a 1.72 split. But when you compare him to the other athletes in this group, it's not the same. But I still think somebody's going to draft this guy, and they're going to get a quality football player, a guy that sets a physical edge in the run game and can also get after the quarterback. So I'm rooting for O'Shane Ximines. I think he's going to be a hell of a football player for someone, and one of the best to come out of the ODU program. Jamal Davis II out of Akron. He was another guy that opened some eyes athletically. 6'3", 243, 4.65 40, 1.58 10-second split. He's another guy that I thought moved well all day long. So he's another guy that I look at and say, I've got some work to do on him as well. And lastly, in this group that was missing, no Jalen Ferguson. And let me add in, Josh Allen should have been with this group. He had no business being with the linebackers. I know they classify him as an outside linebacker. He should have been with the edge rushers. He's an edge rusher. He should have been with these guys, not with the linebackers. And his numbers kind of state that. He should have been with this group. But nonetheless, no Jalen Ferguson. The NCAA career sack record holder, not able to perform at the combine. It was a big controversy, if you remember. I talked about this on my podcast as well. Out of Louisiana Tech, should have been at the combine, was held out and not allowed to participate because of a incident that he had, a battery incident that he had as a freshman at La Tech at a McDonald's, where he got into a little bit of a skirmish with someone. He should have been at the combine. That's bullshit, man. He should have been there. We should have been able to see how this guy tests. I wasn't blown away by him at the Senior Bowl, so I really was looking forward to seeing him in a setting like this, but unfortunately, he was not allowed to participate. So remember, add him to the list of pass rushers that you can get in the first round of this draft. This is a ridiculous draft class of pass rushers. So we go from Group 8 to Group 9 in the final group of Day 3, the linebackers. Dakota Allen kicked us off, and if you remember, I don't know if you're like me, I am a staunch supporter and watcher of Last Chance U on Netflix. I don't know if you guys watch the program, but I do. This is the first guy that I've seen actually get a combine invite and going to make it to the NFL from that show. You see all these athletes, all these guys that were big-time recruits that F up and end up at these JUCOs, and he's the first one to make it back to a Division I program, get invited to the combine, and is now going to get an opportunity to play in the NFL. So that's why I remember Dakota Allen and why I wrote him down, because I was just fascinated at the fact that he was here. And I followed him at Texas Tech as he got a second chance to go back to Texas Tech, and he played his ass off there as well. 6'1", 232, ran a 4.77 40. When you stack him up against the rest of these guys, it was not a phenomenal day for Dakota Allen, but the guy can play football, and he's got a burst. All right, he may not be the fastest long speed guy, but he's got a burst and an acceleration gear in there that's really, really fun to watch. Josh Allen, like I said, should have been with the pass rushers in day number 3. Should have been with the edge rushers. Should have been with Group 8, not with Group 9 and the linebackers. But nonetheless, 6'5", 262, 4.64 40 with a 1.61 10-second split. That guy's going to be a problem at the next level for sure. We saw him do work at Kentucky, and he looks the part, and he checked all the boxes at the combine. Ben Burr-Kirven out of Washington, 6 feet, 230. He helped himself immensely with a 4.56 40. I didn't expect him to run that fast. I really didn't. I thought he would run like a 4.6, 4.62, 4.65, somewhere in that 4.6 to 4.65 range. For him to run a sub 4.6 and then be pretty much 4.65 or 4.55 pretty much at 4.56, that's an exceptional time for a guy that is all over the football field, instinctual, gets the ball, makes very solid form tackles. Really like this guy and what he brings to the table. So I'm really impressed with that time, because when you watch him on tape and you put that up against the time that he ran, it's really impressive for a guy that I think is going to be a very, very good NFL player. And he fits in today's NFL. He fits in today's NFL because he can run. He can run with these tight ends. He can run with these running backs. He fit in today's NFL. Devin Bush was one of the Devins that was supposed to be a headliner of this group. He did not disappoint. 5'11", 234, 4.43. The only thing I'm disappointed with is that that cut he's got. What the hell is going on there? That it's like a half frocks with dreads at the end. I don't know. Don't ask me. I don't know. I don't know if it's just a nappy set of dreads or if he's trying to do something different. Whatever the case may be, the dude can fly, and he lit the combine up with his 40 time, and it just matches the production on tape and the hustle that you see. He's going to be a hell of a football player. And generally, you don't get these guys out of Michigan. So that was the thing that impressed me the most, is that, oh, it's a Michigan linebacker blazing the 40. That's impressive. Blake Cashman was a guy not on my radar, out of Minnesota, but this dude ran his ass off. At 6'1", 237, he ran a 4.5 flat. And I'm going to tell you, in all of the drills on the field, the dude looked silky smooth. It forced me to write him down and say, I've got to take a look and at least watch a couple of games just to see what this guy brings to the table. High volume production guys, what they told me. So you add the production in with this kind of athleticism. He's a guy that's going to find his way onto an NFL roster, and he's going to probably end up sticking around for quite some time if, in fact, he's able to stay healthy, and have that same production that he had in college. With that kind of athleticism in today's NFL, they're looking for guys like Blake Cashman. Thought he had a really strong day. Justin Hollins is another guy that had a really solid day. 6'5", 248, 4.5 flat out of Oregon. Just think about that. 6'5", 250 essentially, running a 4.5 flat. And he's as long as the day is long. I mean, this guy is ridiculous in terms of his length. These are the kind of guys that you're amazed at. You're wow, and your eyes kind of light up when you see him. And he's a fluid athlete. I want to see. He seems like, because he's so long and rangy, he seems like a guy that could get run over in the run game. Can be uprooted in the run game. I got to watch tape on him. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know who he is. But in any event, he ran and tested well. Another guy that ran and tested well, and somebody here yesterday said, hey, look for Gary Johnson to run a 4.4 tomorrow, and that he did at 6 feet, 226. Now, at 226, I would expect a guy to run really fast, but he's a track guy, and he looked good in all of the drills. He looks the part of a guy that's going to be one of these specialty linebackers that you can match up against a tight end one-on-one, against a back out of the backfield, a guy that can drop into zone coverage, feel comfortable in space. He's going to be one of these matchup linebackers that you're looking to get onto one of these athletically gifted tight ends to see if you can take him away. Gary Johnson looks the part for sure, and he had a very strong day. Made himself some money today. That's what he did. Bobby Okereke out of Stanford, 6'1", 239 pounds, ran a 4.58. That's a really good time for him because he's a long, athletic defender. Really long. He's from Stanford. Didn't expect him to run as well as he did. He tested really well because you see this guy running around, making plays at Stanford. Wasn't sure how fast he was going to run. I'm now able to put a time to what I saw on tape with him, and that's impressive for Bobby Okereke, a guy that I really walked away impressed with in day number 3, because to me he's more of a thumper, a downhill thumper, a physical presence. As a linebacker was Jermaine Pratt out of NC State. I didn't expect him to run a sub 4.6. I thought he was going to be closer to 4.7 than 4.6, and he said, damn, you're 4.6. I'm running a 4.57. That was ridiculous. And then he had the best catch of the day. No, Brian Burns' catch was stupid, where he goes down and plucks it and makes it look easy like a wide receiver. But Jermaine Pratt's one-handed, go to the ground snag, control it through the ground, survive the ground, if you will. They had fun with it, but it was truly a remarkable catch. He showed me a level of athleticism that I just didn't think I was going to see because of what I've seen watching him throughout his career at NC State. I just didn't expect this level of athleticism. But he was an ex-safety, so I should have known there was a level of athleticism there. But he just moved a lot better than I thought he was going to move. I thought he really helped himself today with his performance. Another guy that had a strong combine, and I'm so happy for him because he was one of my favorite players at Notre Dame on the defensive side of the football, was Drue Tranquill. Here's a guy that was a safety, starting out his career as a safety, made the move to linebacker, and was outstanding for Notre Dame at linebacker. 6'2", 234, ran a 4.57, and put up 31 reps of 2 1/4. And you want to talk about movement skills? I thought he was one of the best movers all day of any position on the field. He was so silky smooth, so fluid. He is a guy that can run with tight ends. He did it on tape. If you've watched him, I watch Notre Dame football every single week, so I know this guy can run with tight ends and with running backs. This guy's an easy mover. You saw it on day 3 of the Combine. I really think he helped himself. I really think Drue Tranquill helped himself. I'm talking a full round helped himself with the way he performed today. I'm happy for him. He's one of my favorite players of Notre Dame's defense. Speaking of Notre Dame defense, Tavon Coney did not run the 40 today, and I was really disappointed in Tavon Coney. He looked stiff. He didn't look athletic to me. I don't know what was going on with him. That's probably why he didn't run the 40. He wasn't confident that he would go out and blaze it. He didn't look like the guy that I saw at Notre Dame that was a really quality athlete. I didn't expect him to blow the Combine up or anything like that, but He just looked mechanical. He looked stiff. He had trouble getting out of transitions, sticking his foot in the ground and changing directions. I just didn't expect that from Tavon Coney, so a little disappointed in him today. No Mack Wilson in this combine. Ended up with a hamstring injury. He said when they were measuring him on the Cybex machine, he ended up feeling a tinge in his hamstring and ended up getting tight. And I was looking forward to seeing what Mack Wilson would do athletically. You know, I'm always questioning these Alabama linebackers. I was really looking forward to seeing what he would do and how he would test. So I was really disappointed there. No Trey Lamar, another athletically gifted linebacker, this time out of Clemson. He had an injury to his chest during the bench press. I was hoping that he didn't tear his pec. They said that it's a minor injury, didn't tear his pec. That's good news because anytime I hear a guy sustain an injury on the bench, first thing I think of, torn pec. Like we had with the UCLA corner a couple of years ago in Fabian Moreau. You just never want to see that. And so I'm glad to hear that it's not as serious as once thought, but he did not perform at the combine as you would expect, sustaining an injury there, benching for the combine. But the star of this group was Devin White, and he did not disappoint. 6 feet, 237, 4'4", 240 for Devin White. The guy is an animal on the field. He rides animals off the field, and he was an animal at the combine in day number 3. Looked fluid in all the drills, smoked the 40. I'd say that Devin White solidified himself as the first linebacker off the board. If there were any doubts, I don't know if there may have been some Devin Bush fans out there, some people that thought maybe Bush could contend for the #1 spot at linebacker in this draft. I think Devin White pretty much wrapped that thing up, and he's going to be the first linebacker taken off the board come April's draft. And so that's my coverage of day number 3 of the combine. Let's get to your comments and see what you guys have to say about the day. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the Louie T Network if you haven't already done so. So let's get to your comments. Nick Riley says, Devin White showed why he's a freak and the #1 linebacker. He says 4'4", 240, 39.5-inch vert, 9'10" broad. He's a freak and was fantastic. Thought my Michigan homie Devin Bush, the second linebacker in this draft, was great as well. 4'4", 40.5-inch vert, 10'4" broad. Yes, both of those guys lit it up and showed why they're the first 2 in this draft, and then there's a drop-off from them. And not because the other guys aren't quality linebackers, but because they just are that damn good. And so I agree with you, Nick. Those guys separated themselves from the pack. Nick Riley says, Bush is always around the ball, is wild. In the blink of an eye, he's at the point of attack and would lay the Madden truck stick on you. He says, my sleeper is Justin Hollins, a hell of a day. He did have a really quality day. Nick also says, this D-line is filled with freaks all over the place. Quentin Williams with that 169 10-yard split, 4.87, 40 at 303, and Sweat with the 4.41. Burns got hands like a wide receiver. I was just like, wow. I mean, you heard about all the depth along the defensive line and edge rusher, but it was fun to see it. I've been really big on this draft of edge rushers, but the defensive lineman opened my eyes a little bit as well today too. DMV fan 123 says, do you think that the Skins should look at Christian Miller if we don't get a DN in the first round this year? Skins love their Bama boys and players who drop because of injury. He looked really bad today. Christian Miller was falling all over the place. He looked out of sorts. He just looked disheveled today. I don't know. I got to watch more of Christian Miller. I'm always critical, hypercritical of Bama guys because there's so much talent around. How good are you really? Like Ryan Anderson, I'm not a Ryan Anderson fan. You know that. He's one of those guys that I thought just benefited from the other guys around him. I think Christian Miller may be another one of those guys that just benefited because of all of the talent around him. John Perez says, Lou, what's been going on, bro? Been dying to discuss the draft for months. Also really wanted to know what you think about the edge rush, especially Clelin Ferrell and Brian Burns. Burns was one of the stars of the show today. Clelin Ferrell was not that impressive today, and he didn't run the 40. But I think I know who Clelin Ferrell is as a football player, so I'm not too concerned about what I saw today. But Burns, for him to put on the kind of weight he put on, you know, you're talking anywhere from 10 to 15 pounds that he put on, and for him to still be explosive and dynamic as he was, I was blown away by Brian Burns today. Absolutely blown away. Would love the Redskins to take him. Ali Side says, Lou, perfect timing for the Raiders. I would be happy with any of these edge rushers, but who do you think the Raiders should target? It just depends on where you're looking to draft. you know, if you're looking to draft one of those edge rushers with your first pick, I would think that would be a Josh Allen selection. If you're looking at 24 or 27, then you're looking in the neighborhood of probably a Brian Burns would still be around at that point. A Jalen Ferguson would still be around at that point. I don't think you're gonna. I'm guaranteeing that there will be no Montez Sweat at that point of the draft. There will be no Ja'Kai Polite at that point of the draft. If you want one of those guys, you're gonna package up some of those picks to move up to get one of those guys. But you almost can't go wrong in the first round. If you take a first-round edge rusher this year, you almost can't go wrong. That's how good this group is. You almost can't go wrong. There are no definites. There are no guarantees in this draft thing. We know this. All right? There are no guarantees. However, this is as close as you get to almost a sure thing in terms of edge rusher. You take a first-round edge rusher this year, all right, you're probably getting a guy that's going to get you 8 sacks in his rookie season and only go up from there. Somewhere from 6.5 to 8 sacks in his rookie campaign, and it only goes up from there. So, Nick Rice says, I think Draymond Jones has really good tools to be a damn good player at the next level. His first step is really strong and has some fantastic counter moves. I think he has a lot in his tool belt. He's a little soft for me up front. Doesn't show a lot of physicality per se. But in terms of quickness off the ball, when you watch Ohio State, you notice Draymond Jones. Always. And so I agree with you. He's very quick off the snap. I think that's his best trait, best attribute. Vincent Coe says, it's fun to think about draft pick scenarios for teams like the Raiders or the Packers or the Skins. They got extra picks in the first 3 rounds. My Seahawks only got 4 picks overall, shaking my head. You know how the Seahawks do. You're going to trade back 6 times, and by the time it's all done, you're going to have 10 picks. You know how it goes with y'all. Walter Showback says, Burns stood out today. Winovich, another who shined. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Walter. I thought both of those guys balled out today and helped themselves immensely. If you're out there and this is your first time here, make sure you use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air. JP says, Quentin Williams, Devin White, Nick Bosa, and Montez Sweat were all great today. All of those guys are going to be top 10 easily. I don't disagree with that, except Sweat may fall out of the top 10 because of these quarterbacks. It's not inconceivable that a guy like DK Metcalf, all of a sudden, I'm not a DK guy in terms of top 10, but somebody else, all it takes is one. DK could slide in there. You could see a team like Tampa maybe reach for a back like Josh Jacobs. Who knows? I don't think Tampa needs a back. Is the kid out of USC that bad? I wasn't a big fan of him last year, if you remember. But is he that bad that they're talking about potentially needing a back again? No way. I don't know. We'll see. Bottom line is, at the end of the day, if one of those guys is going to slip out of the top 10, I think it'd be Montez Sweat. John Perez says, Quentin Williams, Aaron Donald 2.0, or is he Reggie White 2.0? He's more closer to Reggie White than he is Aaron Donald. But remember, Reggie White was an edge rusher. Quentin Williams is more of an interior presence. Aaron Donald is in a class of his own. I don't like comparing anybody to AD. First of all, he's got 2 first names, so I don't trust him. But I don't like comparing anybody to him because he's in a league of his own. He's a different breed. He's a different specimen. They don't make him like Aaron Donald. So I don't want to compare Quentin Williams to him. I'd more compare Williams to that of a Fletcher Cox. And I think he has the ability to be that kind of a presence. Nick Riley says, a lot of people sleeping on your boy Jerry Tillery, man. Has some crazy length and ability and can get a bit tight sometimes, but man can definitely play. His length is ridiculous. And like I said, when the motor is running hot, Jerry Tillery can be a problem for sure. John Perez says, what do you think of Ja'Kai Polite of Florida? I think the world of this guy. From an edge rushing standpoint and an explosiveness standpoint, I think he has all the tools to be a difference maker at the next level. The question with him is going to be, how does he fit in the run game? Can he stand up in the run game consistently? And the other question is, he put on some weight for the combine. How does he carry that weight? Is that going to be legitimately how he the playing weight that he's going to have, or is he going to cut that weight to be more explosive, which then makes him a liability in the run game? There's a little bit of a trade-off there, and you've got to find that happy medium. But that's the only question with Ja'Kai Polite. If you're looking at him as strictly a pass rusher, there's no doubt that this guy's one of the best in the draft. If you're looking at the all-around body of work of Ja'Kai Polite, then you question, how does he stand up at the point of attack in the run game? Hirsch Patel says, have you already talked about Montez Sweat? No, I haven't, and this is a perfect opportunity to do that. I talked about the 4.4 one that he ran and how he blazed the combine and how he looked like J-Pep, but if you're talking about a guy and his ability to bend in this draft, he's one of the best at getting up the field and bending at an angle that's tough for these taller tackles to get down and reach him, and then ripping and finishing and getting around the edge and getting flat, or as we like to say, running that track and getting around the edge. Montez Sweat, probably the best in this draft at doing exactly that. He's got the ability to go inside. He's got the ability to go outside. Again, much like I talked about with Ja'Kai Polite, how is he in the run game? You don't want to run away from him, much like Ja'Kai Polite and some of these explosive pass rushers. You don't want to run away from them because they'll track you down backside. You want to run at them. They're not as physical at the point of attack. He's another one of those guys that likes to slip blocks and go inside of a block or go around a block instead of taking on a guy, being physical and setting a physical edge. That's the only question about Montez Sweat. Ali Side says, Lou, how do you feel about Nick Bosa? People had him as the #1 prospect despite his injuries. Look, if he's anything like his brother, and I think we can all sit here and agree as we sit here on March the 3rd that Nick Bosa is a splitting image of Joey, then how could you have any doubts about what this guy brings to the table? I mean, I told you, his hands are just as good as his brothers. I think his brothers may be slightly better hand-wise, but it's just as good. You're not going to find another college football player with hands like this. And so I love Bosa. Think the world of the guy. JP says, do you think Dexter Lawrence's suspension for PEDs while at Clemson will hurt his draft stock? No, I don't. If you like Lawrence, then I think you're going to be fine with Lawrence. Nick Riley says, man, Ja'Kai Polite came in overweight, looked really sloppy out there, and taking an injury that did nothing to lower his draft stock, and terrible interview. Look, that's the thing about putting on weight. You want to show people that, hey, I can put on weight, I can be this big physical presence, but at what cost is that? What does that do to you as a football player? People have put him in the top 20 of this draft, not because of his ability to stop the run, but because of his ability to get after the quarterback. You can't sacrifice what got you a top 20 rating to try and be a more overall rounded player. Some people can pull it off. Like Burns put on a legit 10 to 15 pounds and doesn't look any worse for the wear. Ja'Kai Polite looked overweight. He looked slow and sluggish. I surmise that he's going to cut off those 10, 15 extra pounds he put on to try to be a little bit more physical and start at the point of attack for these scouts and these GMs and these personnel guys. And he's going to be a lot more spry at the Florida Pro Day. He's going to light it up. JP says, would you call Kentucky's Josh Allen a defensive end or a line? I told you, he's an edge rusher. I don't know why he's with the L.B.s. Dom Espo says, could the Skins sign Ryan Fitzmagic to a 1 year? I want no parts of him anywhere near my football team because if he gets on the team, he's going to start. You know the rules to the game, then play. JP says, I told you Brian Burns is the real deal. You did. You've been the biggest cheerleader for Brian Burns, and your boy did not disappoint today. He was ridiculous today. Everything you said and then some. He had it on full display. Kevin says, which of these edge rushers do you think the Packers want the most? Whichever they can get their hands on. I mean, if you're Green Bay, I think the Packers sit at what? 12, I believe it is, somewhere in that neighborhood. Sweat will be there at 12. Ja'Kai Polite will be there at 12. I don't think Josh Allen's going to be there at 12. I think you'll have just about the pick of the litter outside of Josh Allen. I don't think Montez Sweat is going in the top 10. I know some people do. I don't think he will. I think the Packers will have just about the pick of the litter. Bosa will be gone, and Josh Allen will be gone. I think everybody else will be available for the Packers at 12, I believe they're at. And if that's in fact the case, it just depends on what kind of, new coaching staff, what kind of defense they're running. I'm not familiar with their defensive coordinator and who they hired, but I can tell you this much. Whomever the defensive coordinator is, if they're running a 4-3, then you're going to be looking at the base 4-3 ends. You're going to be looking at Clelin Ferrell. You're going to be looking at Montez Sweat. If you're running a 3-4, you're going to be looking at a Ja'Kai Polite. You're going to be looking at a Josh Ferguson, or excuse me, a Jalen Ferguson. You're going to be looking at some of those type of guys. I think it's going to be a little early for Jalen Ferguson in the draft, where there are other guys like Ja'Kai Polite and some of these other guys that I think are a better fit for Brian Burns, better fit for a 3-4 defense as an outside linebacker. But I think the Packers are going to have the pick of the litter, depending on what kind of defense they're going to play. Captain Spartan says, when does the new league year start? I'm ready for the Raiders to trade the number 4 pick for Antonio Brown. Then the Steelers can get Devin White. That's not happening. They're not trading the number 4. You can get one of those back-end first-rounders. You're not getting the number 4 overall pick for Antonio Brown. That's not happening. Captain Spartans also says, L.J. Collier dominated the Senior Bowl. Ben Bangu dominated the Combine. Which TC edge rusher you taking? I'd take Bangu. I mean, he just can do more. In a league where the more you do, the better you are, Ben Bangu can do more. He can drop into coverage. He's comfortable out in space. He can rush the passer. I'm taking Ben Bangu. That's the guy that I would take. And I thought he was outstanding at the Combine. Gregory Lightbody says, do you pick Ja'Kai Polite or Brian Burns with the 15th pick? I think I would take, right now, looking at the Redskins and the way that we are constructed, I'd take Brian Burns with that 15th pick because of all the things that he brings to the table. Because I got guys that can stop the run right now in Ryan Kerrigan and Ryan Anderson. I got guys that can stop the run. I want a guy that I know on 3rd and 7 can get me pressure, and Burns can do that. But not only can he do that, Burns showed me the ability at 250 pounds to be able to drop into space and make plays. Like, there's a reason for Brian Burns to be on the field on just about every snap. And still, I know that this guy's best attribute is sticking his hand in the dirt or standing up in a 2-point stance and getting to the quarterback. But I could also, in other packages, stand him up and have him in coverage and have him not be uncomfortable doing so. Let's see. Captain Spartan says Ed Oliver got 2 first names too, and that's why I don't trust his ass. That's why why he was one of my biggest losers. Got 2 first names. Don't trust him. Gregory Lightbody says Kendall Sheffield got injured. Should the Skins take him? I don't know what is the fascination with getting a whole bunch of guys that have gotten injured. I'm good. I want the guys that are healthy, not the guys that are coming off of injuries or has gotten injured recently. JP says, what do you think of L.J. Collier of TCU? Physical guy. I got to do more study on L.J. Collier. I'm more familiar with Ben Bangu than I am L.J. Collier. But he's not the athlete that Ben Bangu is, but he's the yin. He's the yang to Ben Bangu's yin. And so he's a physical pass rusher. Guy that's not going to beat you with pure speed off the edge, but a guy that can beat you with his ability to be physical. He's physical at the point of attack. I do know that for a fact. And does set a physical edge in the run game. Gregory Lightbody says, you think Sweat will be there at 15? There's a chance. After what he did today, I think that chance shrunk just a bit, but I still think there's a chance for him to be there. If you ask me to put a percentage on it today, I'd tell you that it's probably about a 35% chance he's around at 15. It wouldn't shock me, though, if he was gone. I don't think if you ask me him being a top 10 pick, I'd put about around the same percentage, about a 35% chance. You ask me him being on the board at 15, I put it at 30. I think he's going to go in that 10 or 11 to 14 range. That's how I feel. Redskins 24/7 says, you think the Skins will actually trade for Rosen? You've heard all the reports that the Redskins have had open dialogue with the Cardinals as to the availability of Josh Rosen and what it would take. It would not shock me if the Redskins did that. I told you the Redskins are looking, they're itching, they're clamoring to do something big at the Combine. It wouldn't shock me if they did that. And let's be honest, Josh Rosen may be the best option you have as a quarterback at 15, because I think all 3 of the guys that I think the Redskins should be willing to pull the trigger on if they were available at 15, and Drew Lock, obviously Kyler Murray's going to be gone. Drew Lock, I think, is going to be long gone. And also the Ohio State quarterback, damn, I can't even think of his name. I had a brain fart. It'll come to me. They're all going to be gone. And so those are the only 3 that I think are worthy of being the pick at 15. If they're seriously thinking about taking Daniel Jones, I think that's a dramatic and drastic mistake. But Rosen is better than most of the guys in this draft. So I wouldn't be opposed to it. And so Halim Tonic says, what quarterback should the Redskins pick in free agency? None of them, honestly. You know, I wouldn't be mad if they went out and got Tyrod Taylor. He's the black version of Alex Smith right now. He would fit Jay Gruden's offense. He won't turn it over. But we don't have a lot of money to spend in free agency, to be honest with you. So Ty Taylor, Teddy Bridgewater, if his number isn't outrageous, would be another option. Obviously, there's some other guys that in free agency would be right in the Redskins' wheelhouse. But I think they really are going to try to sign Josh Johnson. And I think they're going to look around free agency, see what's out there, see what's available. If nothing else is out there, they're going to sign Josh Johnson, I think, and they're going to just try to draft a quarterback. Gregory Lightbody says, is Sweat better than Marcus Davenport from last year? I think he is. I personally think he is. I thought Marcus Davenport had a lot of holes in his game. I think Davenport way more physical in the run game. Not even close. It's not even up for discussion. But as a pure pass rusher, I think Sweat has him beat, hands down. So it just all depends on what you're looking for. I think Davenport has a higher ceiling from a pass rushing standpoint because he's not where Sweat is now. I think Sweat's pass rushing ceiling isn't as high because he's already so high right now. But Sweat has a long way to go in the run stopping department, whereas Davenport came in ready to stop the run. So I think that's the difference between those two. Let's see. 24/7 Redskins 24/7 says, could you see Nick Bosa falling to the Jets or Raiders, depending on if Kyle? Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. If Bosa doesn't go number 1, he could easily go to 3 to the Jets or 4 to the Raiders. It's not out of the realm of possibility because the Giants are the Giants are at 6. I got to start committing this draft to memory. You've got the, let me look at my pad, get these draft picks underway. I got to start committing this stuff to memory. You got the 49ers. How does he get past the Niners at 2, though? I don't know. I take that back. Because if he doesn't go 1, if you're the 49ers, you don't have a difference-making edge rusher right now. How does Bosa get past you at 2? I just don't see that happening. So I take that back. No, I don't see him getting to the Jets at 3 or the Raiders at 4. JP says, would you also consider Devin White at 15, or will the Bengals snatch him up at 11 since they have a gaping hole at linebacker? Devin White definitely on the table at 15, and I wouldn't have a problem with it. And the Redskins have so many holes. You can't go wrong taking a defensive player. I don't want a safety. That's the one position I don't want them to draft. If you told me I was getting Greedy Williams at 15, Devin White at 15, an edge rusher at 15, even a dynamic receiver potentially, I wouldn't have a problem with any of those selections. What I don't want is a safety. That's the only way. Daniel Jones or a safety is the only way you could piss me off at 15 this year. I don't think those two things are going to happen. I could be wrong. I think they like Daniel Jones. That's the only thing that scares me is that they take Daniel Jones. I hope somebody takes him off the board so I don't even have to worry about it. See. Who do you think my Vikings will take, says Nick Riley. Your Vikings currently sit with the, sit with the 20. I'm so used to y'all picking in the 20s that you're just slightly out of the 20 range. You're 18th. I think you guys are going to allow Anthony Barr to leave in free agency. So I think you would love to replace Anthony Barr with an athletically gifted linebacker. But who is available at that point? I don't think Bush or Devin White are available at 18. It just depends on how the draft falls. Bush may be available for you at 18, and maybe that's the direction you decide to go in. You also need help along that offensive line. There is no doubt about it. Your offensive line needs help. So do you invest in an offensive lineman at 18? That's definitely a possibility. I think that's where you have to start with this Vikings football team is linebacker, offensive line are the two positions that I'm looking at right now, and we'll see what happens there. Dwayne Haskins, thank you. I don't know why I couldn't think of his name, but in any event, I'm going to take a couple more, and then we're going to get out of here. Redskins 24/7 says, you think the Skins should go QB in the first round? I do. If it's there and you like them, I do. But if they don't, I wouldn't have a problem with it. Redskins 24 says, biggest disappointment in the combine thus far. I was really disappointed in Ed Oliver not participating, but I think my biggest disappointment probably came. I wasn't impressed with Hakeem Butler, even though he ran fast. But I think my biggest disappointment might have been day one. Excuse me. I'm trying to think of who I really thought was going to light it up in day one and didn't. You know what? I don't really, I wasn't really overly disappointed with any one particular person in the draft. Oh, there it was day one. I knew I was thinking of somebody. Elijah Holyfield, without a doubt. Worst combine performance I've seen in quite some time. So that was my biggest disappointment. I knew it was somebody, I couldn't think of him. And let's see. I'm trying to grab one or two more. And see, Redskins 24/7 says, I feel you, Lou. I'm really feeling the Skins are going to do something big soon. You think it's possible for Rosen to be traded within the next few days? Again, I don't think they're going to trade Rosen until we get closer to the draft. It's too early to trade him because too many things can happen between now and the draft. It's just not smart on their part to part ways with him yet. Gregory Lightbody says, do you define Josh Rosen as a bust? How dare you use the B word on a quarterback going into his second season? That just makes zero sense. And on that note, I think I'm going to get out of here, man. Thank you for all of your comments. Thank you for continuing to support the Louie T Network. Make sure you check out the podcast, Louie T Network Podcast, available on Stitcher, Google Music Play, iTunes, TuneIn, and, of course, the website, louietnetwork.net. Make sure you subscribe to that podcast, all right? Make sure you subscribe to the Louie T Network on YouTube. Make sure you turn on your notifications so when I'm uploading something, you don't miss out. And so, with that being said, we've got 3 combine days in the books, 1 day left. The defensive backs, and so you'll get the coverage of that tomorrow. That will probably be a little bit later, as I won't be able to watch it live and be ready to report on it as soon as it's over. So that may be a little bit later on in the evening. Nonetheless, you will get my analysis of the defensive backs tomorrow to wrap up the 2019 NFL Scouting Combine. I'm your man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage. It could be. A lot of draft coverage coming your way. Stay tuned. That's why you need to turn that notification bell on so you don't miss out. Until next time, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. You guys have a great rest of your Sunday. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one. Louie T.